donate.
Why haven't you-
Morning, that's when I get the call. Little one.
Yes.
You know, like,
Yeah,
school starts right at 8. We're like,
yeah. So,
hi, hey, I drove past you while you were biking.
Yesterday, in the future discussion, I guess that they predicted.
Yes. Yeah, they said Q greater than 1 was a 2022 issue. So, yeah, but I think that nobody's happy that it's the ignition facility that achieved it, because that's not a repeatable kind of thing. Sorry, you threw me into a deep detail dive there, yeah. But yes, they did.
Good. Okay. Okay, well, it is 8:01, so I would like to call the December 13th, 2022 Whatcom County Public Utility District meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it reads.
I will second that motion.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please.
Commissioner?
Oh, right. Do we want to add resolution 820? Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna suggest that you might want to move item 6H
Yeah.
into the first January meeting.
6H. Yes, I think that sounds good, but we could also just talk about it real quickly under 6H
Okay.
and decide to move it then. That works for me. Do we need to add? Do we have resolution?
827 is item 11.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda, the approval of minutes from our November 22nd regular meeting, our November 28th special meeting, and claims for December 13th.
I do have a question under the claims, but Chris, do you know, will it be Brian talking about some of the projects that's gone on? There's 70,000 spent. There's 281,000 spent on the pump. The questions on the chemicals, and then what's a Black Sunday for 81,000? Would that be something you or
I
do we
think-
talk about now?
If you have some questions about that, I think now would be the right time, since it's in the consent agenda, and Brian would be the right person to talk to about it. And I know Brian is online. So,
Morning, Brian. Your mic's off.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. What's the 70,800 on the RW 38 at plant 1?
That's, I'm getting an echo here.
I hear it.
Do you want to just come in the commission room?
I took care of it. The volume on the TV was just too loud.
Okay, I'm fine. The RW1, the 70,000, is that, I'm not sure which warrant you're referring to. Is that is that for Murray Smith?
It says, it didn't say, it just said RW, is it 38 WTPI?
Yeah, it's probably just a payment to Murray Smith for their design work for the upgrade of water plant 1. I apologize because I don't have a copy of the warrants in front of me here.
Okay, and then I take the 281,000 is for the new pump. Is that a pump or air compressor at plant 1? Annette, you probably know what they're all for anyhow.
That is a pump.
That's Patelco
Okay.
work. That's Patelco's now started back up.
Oh, okay.
Patelco for a while had been just because we were having so much trouble kind of put off, and then that's a remob and they're starting to do work again. And the previous one, the $70,000 is Murray Smith, but on your list, they've changed their name and they're now under Contour North America.
Oh. And let's just talk about the last one, 81,000 for a Black Sunday.
Black Sunday is when the Phillips 66 had their turnaround. And so we did all the testing on our sub and all the work we do when that turnaround's happening.
Oh,
It-
okay.
It's the only time, Commissioner, that we can do that particular work. When we can take equipment offline because the refinery's down.
Is that a term of art for the refineries or one we invented?
No, I don't think we invented it. It's a refinery term.
At least that Bloody Sunday.
Yes. No, I'm sure they did their.
Well, that's the only, I could not let the two of you get away without me harassing you a little, so I thank you for the answers, your time. And I'm ready to approve, if there isn't any objection to the consent agenda as it reads.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. So we're moving on to public comment, and I just wanted to note that we, as usual, always have a public comment at the beginning of our meetings and the end of our meetings. And today we are also doing a public comment, a third public comment associated with our broadband program update. So if you're joining and you have a comment in relation to the broadband work that we're doing, you might want to wait for that third or the second public comment that we'll be having under the broadband program update. So with that said, opening our first public comment. Okay, are there any? Oh, this is where we would see hands, and it looks like I don't see any hands and nobody's coming up to the microphone right now. So I am going to close public comment and then move on to our broadband program update. And I will pass it over to Chris and Andrew, but just wanted to say too, with this public comment that we have for broadband, to my fellow commissioners, that we were thinking, I talked with Chris and Andrew about this yesterday, that they would kick us off. They have a little presentation and kind of want to frame things. As you recall, at our last meeting, the report had only come out 24 hours before the meeting. So we've all had a little bit more time to digest that. And then also looking to the January Washington State Broadband Office grant deadlines. So they're going to kind of frame all of that for us. Then I thought we would open public comment, 3 minutes per person for the broadband public comment. And then commissioner discussion after public comment. Does that sound good to both of you to structure it that way?
Sure.
Okay, great. That worked for you. Okay, so I'll kick it over to you and Andrew then.
Thank you, Commissioner. So kind of a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks. The WSBO grant dropped, and WSBO is the Washington State Broadband Office. That's our shortened up acronym for them. And it was largely unchanged from what was in the past in terms of their requirements. So a lot of what we want to talk about today is what to do about that, and as well get input and feedback from everybody on the study itself, those are two entirely different issues. So with that, I'd like to kick it over to Andrew. If Andrew could, number one, unmute, number two, share your screen.
Good morning, Chris, commissioners. Give me a moment here to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see this okay?
Yes, it looks good.
Okay, perfect. So yes, a big moment right now with the State Broadband Office opening up their Notice of Funding Opportunity. Grants are due January 17th. And so staff have been preparing for a potential project. And we've taken in consideration past commission comments and remarks and use that to engage with local providers to identify project areas that would be high scoring in this upcoming grant round. And so to kind of frame up what I mean by that, you can see the blue areas on this map. These are areas that there's kind of a lot going on, and it's all colored one color, but I'll do my best to break it down for you here. Kind of the North Linden and East Linden area, and then over by Ferndale. That's all areas that have been inside those polygon areas are areas that have already been funded to the Port of Bellingham. And then the Port of Bellingham will also go after grant dollars to build out off of those already funded areas. So that's what you're looking at in those blue polygon areas. And then the kind of over by Acme, that big polygon area, that's a federally funded project area, which means we're not eligible to go after grant dollars inside that area either. So everywhere else on the map, you can see all the map area that's left over, that's not in blue. That's all open for project areas that we can partner with a local internet service provider. And what we're using it's kind of bleeding edge that the FCC just redid their maps, and they just came out about a month ago. And we're looking at those maps and finding areas that are unserved and underserved and targeting those areas in the open map areas here. So
Andrew, can I interrupt for just a second?
Please do.
So much of the unshaded area is area that would have shown as fully served under the old criteria. So if you look at census blocks, especially, for instance, the Bellingham area, the Blaine area, those areas would show as fully served under the census block. What we did was we unmasked all that and we said, okay, where are the funded projects for at any level? And those census blocks have been color coded here and kind of locked out. And what we did was we looked at all of the remaining untouched census block areas plus all of the previously served areas from the census block level to search for individual and clusters of unserved or underserved customers. So it really kind of geographically opened the thing up quite a bit because we could actually target areas that were technically served at the census block area, but could have individual customers or clusters of customers that were in fact unserved or underserved.
So I have a question about the shaded blue areas, particularly with respect to the port. So I remember the port getting funding from EDI in the state to do projects in Deming, but have they already gotten funding for North Linden and Ferndale too?
This includes areas where we have helped prep the next round of applications. So it's the last 3 rounds plus the coming round that are already prepped. And then the question for us was, is there additional funding that we want to go after independent of the port or in partnership with the port? So it's in addition to what the port is attempting to get in this next round.
One concern that's been raised about private sector money from federal government is that the envelopes that are defined are substantially larger than the areas of people that are actually served. To what extent might that be true about public state funding to public sector participants? Meaning, if I look in those blue shaded areas, and I'm not referring to the USDA RDOT funding, I'm referring to North Linden and Deming. To what extent are people who live in the blue shade area still going to be either severely underserved or unserved after the port receives the funding?
So I guess the short answer to that question is some. There will be some of that, as there will be throughout the whole rest of the county. And what we were trying to do was not to speculatively build off of projects that may not be awarded. So, if we were to go after some of those areas, and, the assumption then would be that the work that was forecast to be done in the prior segments gets done on time, on schedule. If we were to go after that, then we would have to wait until that work either got done or was canceled, and then we'd have to cancel ours. So we're choosing instead to look for projects where we could do standalone work and serve clusters of unserved or underserved customers that are daylighted through the fabric.
It might be appropriate for them, based on what you're saying, but let me make sure I understood. Is that after the funding is received, the detailed engineering and pass-bys and the relationships with ISPs and the action of ISPs will be determined. And things will get built. And once those things are built, it's possible that some people won't get served. Am I right?
Can I just ask a question? So when you're saying people might not get served, is that because of the distinction between homes passed versus homes served? Like people,
It's
or because people don't sign up
for
or,
practical infrastructure challenges. You know, there's only a finite amount of money though. And as you know, often is the case, everything costs more. So for these reasons, at some point after the funding is issued, and the projects are constructed, and both the public and private sector actions are completed, there certainly is the possibility that folks won't get served. And I just want to confirm that because I have a follow-up to that.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
Okay, so then I think it's important for the commission to adopt a policy regarding that. Which is that some year, maybe 1 year after, or at some point, we communicate and we make sure that we don't create the same kind of barrier to growth and service that the envelopes proposed by the private sector have created.
can I ask a clarifying question? When you say envelopes from the private sector, are you talking to the RDOF areas?
Well, yeah, that's one example.
Okay, okay.
But we shouldn't claim to serve people. Because, I mean, the worst thing is if a lot of this public funding is because for financial practical return on investment, the private sector hasn't served many places in America. And then there's huge public impetus, which is good, 100% support that to get people service and access to data. But at the same time, we shouldn't do anything to preclude subsequent action from the private sector or public-private partnerships or other public partner participants to serve areas that we end up not being able to serve. I'm just making sure that's the case.
I think I look at this from a different perspective. Every time funding becomes available, you're going to compete for that funding and you're going to have to submit for the highest value that's available. So it may be that it's in areas that today are quote served, and there are a few customers that are scattered around in there, or it may be that it's clusters of people that are already in served areas. But you're going to want to submit the highest possible need, which is measured a bunch of different ways. There's socioeconomic measures, there's cost per pass measures, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to want to put in whatever has the best chance of securing those grant funds. And that's what we're talking about here. Well, what Andrew has done is he's daylighted the next tranche of most likely customers to receive a state grant from the Washington State Broadband Office. And, you know, the fact that there are other customers out there who would, you know, perhaps at $25,000 or $30,000 a pass wouldn't get the funding. You know, I'll acknowledge that. As long as these funds are available on an annual basis, those of us who are competing with those funds are obligated to figure out what's the most likely to succeed and go after that. And that's what we're doing here.
What the only part I'm just making clear, it's important that we also then report what we actually end up doing. What actually is the built out infrastructure that we build, and we that there are, I think what you're implying is that there will be no barriers to subsequent layers of investment and growth because the way the current funding has been structured.
No, I'm not saying that at all. Not at all.
So that's my concern. I want to make sure that there's no barriers that we're presenting to subsequent rounds of.
But I mean, there's economic barriers. That's why there's federal funding in the first place. That's the point.
I'm talking about the capital cost barriers. I'm talking about the envelope related barriers.
And as I said, what you're looking at with the fabric data is that a lot of this envelope in future is going to go to the customer level. So the issue is going to be, what can you get funded? And we're going to have to figure out the most competitive offer. And it may very well be that when you look at socioeconomic and cost per pass and, you know,
Okay,
all the
so
other
I think you
measures.
answered my question, and that's at the envelope, because the envelope data is at a customer specific level. There won't be a barrier because it'll be customer specific.
No. No, what I'm saying is that the purpose of these grants is to overcome the barrier. And we're going to identify the next most likely group of customers each time to surmount that barrier. Barrier still exists. The grant just helps us get through it.
At the same time, Chris, as we go into an aerial, we may look at the area and say there's so many customers there, but it is actually the choice of the individual home to decide where they want to connect.
That also is true.
So if you connect, if there's say 30 homes, but you only have 5 who want to connect, how do we justify that spending to get all that in there with such a small return?
Well, and that's exactly the scoring challenge. And you know, it may very well be that at some point we end up with something that best we can do, it scores 78 and the awarded level is at 90. You know, so we may very well end up in that situation at some point. And I have no idea when that would be. But I do know that, you know, if this money goes on ad infinitum, we're going to continue to apply for it. And if the money ends, it ends. And there's not, you know, we have nothing to say about that here. Just when the opportunity is there to help our customers, we're going to take it to the extent that the commission supports that action. The other thing I'd like to point out is that what we're talking about building out here is fiber-based infrastructure. And to the extent that you run that all over the countryside, even in little bits and pieces, you are making fiber available in areas where it wasn't before. And that in effect lowers part of the barrier to entry for broadband for that area. Again, whether customers choose to seek that or not is one issue, and whether the competitive ISPs choose to use that infrastructure, which begins to look a little bit like middle mile and final mile. If we can help lower that barrier, it's going to help outside even of this effort to get more customers served.
And that was our goal all along, is to get into those areas that are unserved, correct?
It was to reach those customers that are unserved. It happened, you know, when you look at the census block data, they're in, you know, wide swaths of the county. When you look at the fabric data on a customer by customer basis, what we found is that they are in odd little clusters all over the place, and even in census blocks, which are technically served.
I just have a terminology question. Are we using envelope synonymously? Is that synonymous with polygon? When, or are you just talking about the?
For me, it is.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
For
was
me, it is.
understanding.
Yeah, but you know, I don't know what our staff, uses in terms of the.
Yeah,
does it
in our-
mean the same thing for you too?
In our prior grant applications, the envelope and the polygons would have been synonymous with the census blocks. So all of that would have meant the same thing. Going forward, that's not true. Because we're really focused on a customer by customer.
Right, which is, I think, I'm not sure we understood each other, but that was my question. And because we're doing customer by customer, I'm not worried about a potential barrier to investment by other participants. So that we can continue.
Okay. Andrew, I think that means it's back to you.
Okay, thanks for jumping in, Chris. That was very well said. So I'll go to the next slide here, if I can. So staff, at the staff level, we're looking for direction from the commission on really 3 big areas as we move into the grant cycle, or as we're in the grant cycle, and as we prepare for a grant application. And the first question, I'll go through all 3 here. The first is, should grant-funded broadband infrastructure be owned in perpetuity by the PUD? And then what about affordability and speed? If we were to put in a grant application that, you know, stated the partnering internet service provider would be able to deliver gigabit services for less than $100 a month with no install fee, would that meet the commission's expectations? And then finally, should the PUD require open access terms for all of our efforts, all of our broadband efforts?
So I want to make sure that this is all framed properly. This is us going out doing two things. One, competing for the grant, and then two, negotiating the IRU with the ISP. I'm using all kinds of acronyms again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you
But
want to go ahead and define it?
yeah, the ISP is an internet service provider. So those, think about as your Comcast, Ziply, Pogo Zone, Widbytel, all the various telecom, Anacortes, all the various telecom providers that are out there. And they might possibly be willing to work with us. An IRU is an irrevocable right to use. So that is an agreement between the PUD and the internet service provider, the ISP, that really it's a contract that sets out who does what in terms of maintenance and how long it lasts and what happens at the end of the IRU's period, which is typically 20 to 25 years. In fact, I think typically 25 years. So, on the one hand, there's kind of the overall broad policy, what do we want here? And then on the other hand, there's the dilemma that if we end up with a term or condition that the ISP, the internet service provider, cannot agree to, then, it really makes our negotiating with any of the ISPs quite difficult. For instance, there's one ISP that absolutely flat refuses to do anything with regards to open access. And that's fine. I mean, if it's 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 20, but what happens if it's 5 out of 5? I don't think that's going to be the case. But it may be on some of the other criteria, such as ownership to perpetuity. What we've seen in other parts of the state is that at some point after the initial term of the irrevocable right of use, the IRU, that the facilities are offered for sale on a right of first refusal to the ISP. Others, they revert to the ISP for a nominal amount of money. So there's that issue. And then, as our counsel would tell us, any assets that we have that we establish in the telecom side would literally require a vote of the people to deed off to someone else at the end of the IRU. So there are other legal difficulties with this. In other words, these are not trivial questions that we're asking, and kind of welcome the response there. The other thing is this has to do with the grant application, not the study, which is a different animal. And this is. Should we go after the grant application? We want some negotiating parameters from the commission.
And I think it's important to say that the grant application is what's the urgent item and important. It's both urgent and important.
Absolutely. And I think, and Andrew, you could tell us it's like January 17th or 21st, something like that, that the submission date. So it's coming up.
So Andrew's
17th,
canceled his
yep.
1 month Hawaii trip.
He has.
Yes, okay, good.
Andrew, that was great of you to take one for the team that way.
Yep, it's a team effort.
So just to clarify with framing this, these are some of the key questions you're looking for feedback on from both the public and the commission in terms of our wish list for what we would want.
Yeah.
We would then need to negotiate with whatever ISP we work with, because the Washington State Broadband Office requires that you partner with a private ISP, correct? When you're
I believe that's true. Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
right, Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so,
I guess the first thing we need to ask is, do you want us to go after it?
right,
And if the answer is no, then we don't need to worry about any of this stuff.
okay.
If the answer is yes, then my question to you is, what parameters do you want us to chase down in our negotiations?
Okay.
Well, what's the relationship then with the port? Because I thought that these questions like it should be addressed to the port too, as well as us. Or are we taking all of a sudden a step out away from the port? I'm not
Well,
aware of that.
It's kind of an evolutionary thing. So we've supported the port and we will on this next round. In fact, Andrew's already done all of the preliminary work for the port submission for this next round. They've got a submission that's probably going to be a grant application about 10 to 12 million. So maximum single award on this is 12 million. Total amount available is 120 million. So you could have $10, $12 million grants in the state. So, you know, what our application would be for the second grant award in Whatcom County. And I will tell you that because the low hanging fruit's been picked, this one would not score as highly. So it'd be kind of subordinate to that. However, the existing IRUs, irrevocable rights of use, have been negotiated between the port and are being negotiated between the port and the ISP they're choosing. So they need to settle on those terms. Their commission needs to approve it. If we're going to have one where we make the application and at the end of time own the assets, this commission needs to opine on what they want to see on it. So it's in addition to what the port's doing. And, you know, we just help each other. We've helped Gina with all the technical stuff. She'll help us with the grant writing and everything will be great.
So do we want to open it up for public comment at this point?
Yeah, I think that makes sense from my perspective.
Does that sound good to you, Mike?
Mhm.
So, opening the public comment period related to both the broadband feasibility study as well as the 3 questions that Andrew has displayed there. So feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to comment, and Mike can help get you upgraded to a panelist. We have a commenter in the room here, so let's start with Rick Miracle. And then we'll move on to the online comments. And we're aiming for about 3 minutes per comment, everyone, just so you know.
Okay. This occurred to me at your last meeting when you presented the study. And it noted that the cost of installing the fiber to a house was, I believe, something like $13,500 a residence. And it occurred to me that right now, for $500, you can have Starlink installed at a house anywhere in Whatcom County, which seems to me to be a much more cost-effective way of reaching these places than waiting a year to 2 years for grant process and all the rest of that and the construction and the rest of it, when you can basically have it in a couple of months. And that system is not entirely built out yet. And when they do have it fully built out in another couple of years, they expect to be able to deliver at gigabit speeds. So I think you need to consider whether or not running a whole bunch of fiber all over the county is really the best route to go. There are alternatives.
Thank you for your comment.
Comment?
Yeah.
Just to clarify. So the grant application only covers final mile, only covers fiber. If you don't have a final mile, then you can only score about a top of 60. And normally those things get awarded in the high 80s. So, you know, the issue is if somebody wants Starlink, they should go ahead and do it. I mean, this doesn't change that. What we're applying for is state grant money to build fiber. And I see those as separate things. And a home may choose to have both a fiber and a satellite and a wireless connection. And that would be the customer's choice.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, let's move on. It looks like we have 3 hands up with our online attendees. So, Mike, can you
Andrew.
move the first commenter to panelist?
I've already allowed Andrew Long to talk,
Okay,
ready to
so
talk.
Andrew, why don't you go first?
Okay, and I'm not sure, oh, I see. And do I need to turn on my video or what's the story on this?
No, you are just allowed to talk.
Okay.
Just need your audio.
Yeah, it's the first time I've done this in this webinar thing, and first time I'm doing a public comment on the PUD. So I'm just new to this and having to figure it out. Okay, so I'm Andrew Redding. I am the chair of the Whatcom Democratic Party, and I am speaking in representation of the party. This is a public utility district, meaning that, you know, it's an elected district, and it's not a private utility district, and we are the party that represents the majority of the voters in actually the citizens in Whatcom County, as was very dramatically made clear in the elections just a few weeks ago, where we won every single thing on the ballot. And so I feel an obligation to speak on behalf of our members and our voters. And I'll first just quickly answer the questions, the public comment session questions. To number one, a very clear yes. We believe that that anything that the public funds should remain with the public. We don't believe in public giveaways to the private sector. That's socialism in reverse. We want to make sure that what the public pays for, the public continues to own indefinitely into the future. And so we don't support the IRUs that were done by the port that shift all of this to the private sector after a set number of years. On number two, broadly speaking, yes, obviously we'd prefer it'd be considerably less than $100 a month, but this would be great just to have this. So it's a yes on number two. And on number three, on open access, a hard yes again with, we feel very, very strongly about this, that, if you're going to have a PUD providing access to something where you have the private sector involved, it must be on the basis of real competition. It can't be a monopoly. It really needs to be real competition. Otherwise, there's no free market involved. There's no actual market competition. And so that I think it's very, very critical that all three of these be answered yes. Now, quickly moving on to the report, I've submitted a detailed answer to that, because it's more than can be done in 3 minutes. I think the report's got a lot of good information in it. I think it's a good report, basically. My one critique has been that while it recommends option 2, it also says that both options are viable, are economically viable. And one thing it doesn't mention is the importance of, again, something I've been stressing here, if you're going to have public dollars that came from essentially public taxes from you and me, they shouldn't be, they should remain in the public zone. And so I think there's an advantage, a criterion that's not looked at here sufficiently as a value is of maintaining as much of the public dollars as possible through expanding the public network, if you see what I'm saying.
Andrew, I just want to give you a 30-second, you're almost up with your 3 minutes.
Right. Okay. So, and I'm almost done. And then the
Great.
other thing in there is that it makes a mention on number 2 that there have been rare instances of where things have gone south on number 2, but then it gives absolutely no detail, no case history. We need to know that. We can't go on. There have been rare cases. We have to know what those have been and what came of it. So I think that's another important thing. I will leave the balance of my time, and you can read about it in what I sent you all by email.
Thank you for your comment, Andrew. Moving on to our next commenter, Jamie Douglas. Go ahead. You've got 3 minutes.
Thanks, and thanks for this opportunity for public comment. I'm the previous chair of the 42nd LD Democrats and the current vice chair. And I helped co-found the TAG Northwest connectivity group that I'm a member. But my comments today are just from myself and not in any of those 2 capacities. I'd like to echo what Andrew has just shared. And to all 3 of these questions, I would say yes. I would like to point out that the Commission's heard presentation from Kitsap County, and I think that there are several points from their presentation that relate to this whole effort. and what's come both for doing the grant, but from the feasibility study. Kitsap retains or has ownership of the fiber optic network that they construct, and they construct right to the residents. And that's a future-proof technology. Unlike, you'll see lots of proposals for different kinds of technologies of, oh, here's a cheaper way or like that. But none of those technologies provide you the not having to go back and try to do things again, like fiber optic network. They build out and retain this as publicly owned. They also have Kitsap has a menu of ISPs that they offer to customers as part of their open access with the kind of pricing that you see here. So I think that dovetails really well with the kinds of information that you heard. We're talking about grant funding. They did LUDs, but if you set aside the funding mechanism and look at a lot of the other overlaps there, I think it's instructive. They also, Kitsap retains their authority to provide retail, because they just do wholesale providing now. But they use that as leverage to ensure that the ISPs they have as part of their menu will continue to meet the agreements, because after all, if they don't, they have the right to be an ISP and provide that service to customers. So I'm excited about what's going on here. I do have, because of my own community with McGee Road, I hope that the McGee Road was part of the blue section that Andrew was showing. But I'm really happy to see this and see it move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Next commenter, Chris K. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Chris Schuyler. I'm an electrical engineer, former member of the City of Bellingham Broadband Advisory Work Group, and a current member of TAG Northwest Connectivity Group. I first want to congratulate the Commission in their partnership with the Port of Bellingham and helping roll out these projects in Nooksack, Ferndale, and Linden. They're excellent both as a proof of concept and a concrete benefit to our communities. I came with comments prepared about the feasibility study, but I'll try to quickly respond to the public questions first. In short, I, like Jamie, answer with a resounding yes to all three questions. To the first one, any infrastructure developed by the Whatcom PUD must absolutely be owned in perpetuity by the public. I'm not sure why this is a question. We know building out the physical infrastructure for rural communities is the biggest expense. And once that investment is made, I would consider it a dereliction of the public trust to sell it, probably for pennies on the dollar. The speeds, gigabit per second for $100 a month, is a great speed at a fairly reasonable price. It would be beneficial to have a lower speed tier at a lower cost. And regarding the open access question, as well as the concern about ISPs that may not like that arrangement, I think requiring open access would leave plenty of our smaller local internet service providers happy to work with us on that customer. Again, the biggest expense of the physical infrastructure is taken care of, and they would be getting monthly revenue from any customers they could pick up. Our providers who aren't trying to guarantee a monopoly would be happy to work under those conditions. Regarding the feasibility study, I appreciate the steps the PUD has taken in retaining NOAANET and Petrichor to complete this study. Yet, having read the document cover to cover, I am concerned about inconsistent calculations and opaque assumptions provided by the firms, both as individual reports and when compared to each other. These problems are best illustrated in Table 4, Model Number 2 financials. While a heading is given for segment area, the west, east, north categories are not reflected. Whatcom PUD project area is the only segment named. The number of strands and run length in miles columns are completely blank with no information presented. The number of subscribers, 1,010, is inconsistent with NOAA number 808, despite a claim being made that consistency between the two firms' assumptions would be maintained. Some of this missing information is filled in by the attachments, yet questions persist and the inconsistency in and of itself is concerning. In the attachment I construction estimate, the number of poles per segment area is less than the supposed sum of its parts. There are scratch pad style calculations without explanations, and many acronyms are not defined. This is a really funny example. In attachment F, revenue model internal operations, the grand total number of customers predicted is exactly 1, a business in year 3. This is across your residential customers, business customers, high capacity customers over 6 years of operations, and their table reports they predict 1 customer. These attachments and tables need more than proofreading. Some of them, I believe, need to be completely redone. It is very key that this information is as accurate as best of a forecast as we could possibly get. Both the expense and revenue estimates of models 1 and 2 differ by a factor of approximately 3, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And before we,
Chris?
Yeah.
I think we're all very appreciative of this feedback. You are past your 3 minutes. Do you happen to have this in writing? Could you share it in an email?
I do, yes.
It would be really helpful if you could email it to us. But we do need to get on to our next commenter.
Sure. Can I just make 2?
Yes, please wrap
points?
up your comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the recommendation that I would like to make to the PUD is twofold. 1, create a standardized calculation framework with input from the port, cities, and other providers that encompasses all assumptions and inputs, so that NOAA and Petrocor, for example, would be turning in the same figures, the same tables, and it would be easier to compare side by side, line item to line item, the assumptions and the resulting calculations. 2, this is a topic that came up on the broadband advisory work group, but geographic information. I'm sorry, can you still hear me? I had an audio hiccup.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, thanks. The importance of geographic information systems in planning and managing any far-flung rural infrastructure project is key. The port and PUD's deployments need to be tracked with the most modern, stable, and well-supported GIS software we can afford. And in closing, I'd just like to say I'm a big advocate for public broadband, and thank you for taking this public comment.
Thank you, Chris. And we look forward to your email. Thanks for following up with that.
Can you share the best address to send that to?
Yeah, Mike, could you put in the chat the commissioner's email addresses and Chris's email address? Mike McComber?
Yeah, we don't have chat enabled, but I'll figure it out. I might be able to put it in the Q&A section.
Okay.
That goes to all of us? No, it comes to me. Okay, great.
Okay.
So what Anna's saying is best address is info@pud.whatcom.net. .org, pardon me. info@pudwhatcom.org. That'll go to our clerk of the board, and then she will get it distributed to staff and the commissioners.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and all the commissioners' email addresses are on the website too.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Mhm.
Next commenter, Kaylee Galloway. Welcome, Kaylee. Councilmember Galloway.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the PUD Commission and staff. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment this morning on an important issue. My name is Kaylee Galloway. I am a Whatcom County Council member representing District 1. I'm here as an individual council member, not on behalf of my council or Whatcom County as a whole. I just wanted to share the importance of broadband. Early on in my tenure on council, it was abundantly clear to me the community was demanding access to affordable, quality, high-speed broadband. It became abundantly clear that this was an absolute necessary to participate in our economy, as well as to bridge equity divides among our urban and rural communities. And so when I took office, it was sort of my job to dig into the issue and kind of learn what role the county can play in the broader conversation around broadband and how we can work together with the Port and the PUD in this effort. It became clear the role of the county historically had been predominantly around funding, providing it through economic development investment or through various matching grant opportunities, ARPA funds, and the like. It also became clear based on other municipalities that Dig Once was an opportunity for roads and infrastructure within county right of way to develop a coordinated approach to installing fiber when we're digging up those trenches for either new development or road construction projects. And it also became clear in my mind the county could be a better partner with the Port and PUD as we're working towards these common goals. And so I came here today to support the PUD in their efforts to increase their broadband projects. I believe the PUD with the newer additions of Chris and Andrew provide incredible technical experience that will propel our county into new levels. And I think they have shown to be incredible complementary and collaborative partners with the Port. I also want to point out that Andrew's GIS mapping is absolutely incredible, as well as his digital equity framework that I think sets a new standard for the state. I think all of this is really towards the end of doing more faster. And I think that's what our constituents and our members of our community are asking for. To share my thoughts on the questions posed today, I absolutely believe that publicly funded infrastructure should be maintained by a public agency in perpetuity. That was an issue we discussed at council as we were discussing about providing the matching grants. And so this is a value I believe our county would hold dear. I do believe 100 per month seems reasonable for gigabit services. By way of comparison, I pay $60 a month for 100 symmetrical in downtown Bellingham. And so the thought of a gigabit is quite amazing. And I know friends in Seattle who pay 150 for their utilities, so for their internet service. So I do believe that that's a competitive rate. And in terms of open access, I also believe that's an incredibly important component to all this. The open access needs to remain in perpetuity as well. So again, thank you all so much for your time. And I appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Galloway. I am not seeing any more hands up online, and it doesn't look like anyone else in the meeting room is going to be commenting. So I am going to close the public comment for broadband today. Thank you to all the commenters for weighing in. We really appreciate it. And then I want to open it up for commission discussion before we move on to new business.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with the comments. And then regarding the study, I think it's something that I'm not proud of. Probably the first work product we produced that I feel that way about since becoming a commissioner. But it's okay. We don't have to be done with it. So I think it needs attention. We need to think about explaining that it doesn't answer kind of broader questions. It answers a narrow question, and that there's lots of technical things that can be further improved. But that's not an urgent matter. For the last 4 years, I've been very much passionate about this mid-mile and backbone strategy that the PUD, from the study, the PUD first co-funded with the Port, and still fully supportive of that. And that's what our application is about. So the further clarifications to maximize open access and the ownership of the publicly funded infrastructure should stay public.
Well, from the very beginning, I became interested in broadband again because we tried this many years before. Because of the COVID, and children weren't getting the education because of the closure of all public, or actually all education, that parents were driving to the parking lots of their school and trying to download information, take it home to educate their children. It was an incredible burden and a very poor way to educate. So I became interested in doing this again to support those children as well as people who are looking for work that they had to work from home. I do not believe that the PUD can do this by themselves. I believe this is a county effort. I believe everybody has to come together to support this. So I wish you the best in doing that, but I think it's the only way it's going to succeed is everybody work together to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I've talked to a lot of constituents and folks since the feasibility study came out and as we're preparing for the Washington State Broadband Office grants. And I think, you know, as you were illustrating, Commissioner Murphy, I think there's really a lot of consensus around the idea that broadband is an essential utility service now to thrive in today's economy. So, and world. So I'm also strong yes on all three of these questions and am very supportive of the PUD applying for the Washington State Broadband grants in January. And look forward to continuing to dig into the feasibility study in January and exploring where the role of the PUD goes as we understand more about what our grant looks like as we kind of firm it up and, you know, when we learn more about whether we're successful or not. So,
So I also, I've written an email, sent it to Chris about the feasibility study. It's really focused at the front end. I didn't get into the technical issue because I feel like any study, you know, the foundation stones, if they're not right, then data is less important to me. Not that there's not work necessary on the data side too, and the follow-up work, but all of my comments were about the front end. So if Chris, you can share that with the commission, I'd appreciate that.
I can certainly shift that off.
well, maybe we could share some of these different comments that we're getting in about the feasibility study with NOAANET and Petrichor. And then we'll defer to you and Andrew about how we want to circle back about that in the new year. Does that sound?
It does. And,
Okay.
and I think that probably the best way to do this would be to get all the questions, regardless of source, and get a Q&A page up on our website, just so that everybody can see answers to everything.
Okay, with answers from the consultants?
Yeah.
Or, okay,
Yeah. Some of the questions that Chris brought up, I already know the answers to, because these are the same questions that we asked and were answered in the study. And you just need to go through and either understand the assumptions, because not all of those were so well spelled out, but when you get through it, you realize, okay, I see where that came from. So a lot of that we've gone through already. We can share that with folks. It just is not in the report. Some of it is new, and you know, just need to ask the question, and some of it is outside of the scope. And that's another thing that Andrew and I both got here, and this thing was already scoped out and awarded. And what the consultant did was answer the question that we paid him to. And you know, people now are saying, well, you should have asked something else. Now, so be it. That's not what was asked at the time, and that's not what the consultant was charged with answering. So some of it is that. And you know, to the extent that people feel that the question wasn't asked properly or answered properly, you know, my apologies. The fact is the consultant answered the question asked, and that's what they were paid to do, and that's what they did.
I had hoped to have more conversation with Chris at the annual conference, and he had indicated he was going to attend, but he wasn't.
Yeah, there was
Chris Walker,
Chris Walker.
NOAANET, just to clarify.
And
there's a lot.
yeah, there was a lot of people who didn't make that conference over in Spokane in the snow.
Yeah.
For those of us who did make it, it was highly educational.
So I look forward to follow. I think you said it could be possible in January.
Yes.
Okay, I look forward to that.
So our first commission meeting of January is
I'm just,
you keep going.
I do need the head nod from the three. I don't need a vote or anything, but just you guys all in favor of us pursuing the grants.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you've given us the kind of negotiating parameters.
Mhm.
Okay, we're
Is
good.
that- yeah,
So
okay.
Andrew and I will move forward on that.
Okay.
we're fine.
Okay, that was all I was, yeah, great.
And I think commission action has been absolutely clear for the last couple of years on that, yeah.
But
Consistent.
it's good. I think. We look forward to hearing more about the application and best of luck. We know it's a lot of work getting this all put together under a quick timeline.
Well, and you know, between Andrew and Gina, we've got a heck of a crew on this. So thank you.
Great. Well, I have a few broadband related things, but I can just do them under my commissioner report.
Okay.
Do we have any other items that we want to talk about at this time under broadband? Okay, let's move on then to new business. We do have a pretty packed agenda. So the first item under new business relates to our budget resolutions, adopting our district budget, and there is Annette. So I will hand the mic to you, Annette.
Thank you. Yes, this is just the basically the final step in our budget process. So we've gone through all the presentations, we've gotten the feedback, we've had a revised presentation. And so what this is just accepting the resolutions that set the budget officially and all the rates. So there's 3 resolutions related with that. The first one is the budget, and then it also includes increasing the emergency reserve just by that $5,000 that we spoke with. And then the second, number 822, is the water rates, and the final one is concerning the electric rates. So is there any questions on those? Final questions?
No, not for me.
I guess the only question I had is, in the, after the customer meetings that we had, was there any follow-up discussion or, subsequent questions or, concerns from the customers?
No.
Okay.
I have one question for John, if I can ask him here. John, this was presented to us as one on the agenda as what's called 6A, and it shows all resolutions under 1. Do we separate each one to vote, or can we say resolution, go right down through the list for under one motion?
You can do one motion for 821, 822, 823.
Then I will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. The motions carry. The resolutions are passed. Thank you.
We had said if you wanted to debate one, I'd separate the discussion, but there wasn't any.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Annette, for all your work on this over the last few months, and to all the other staff involved. Moving on to 6B, resolution 824, cancellation of warrant. And it looks like Tracy is here to help us.
That's me. I decided to come in. This is just a duplicate warrant, so we're just canceling and it doesn't need to be reissued. It's already been paid.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 824.
I'll second it.
there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, moving right along, resolution 825, providing for the use of electronic records and electronic signatures.
Can I make a comment before whoever speaks about it? Is that going to be you, Ann, or Chris, or who's? Well,
I think
the only
he's
thing-
the host.
All right, because this is for 2024. Should this be tabled till Jamie comes on board? Because it's her name that's gonna be on there in 24, not mine, so I don't know why I'm voting on it.
I think the resolution was ready, and so we brought it to the commission. If the commission wants to table it for a month, I don't see there being real harm in waiting.
Well. So it's just the formality of extending. Or we extended it 3 times now, the date. It expires.
Well, when does it expire? Is it
It
current?
expires the end of this year.
Okay,
December 31st.
I think my sense, Commissioner Murphy, is that it would be fine to do this today, and if she has any issues with it, we can talk about it in January, but I think it's pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
I'm very open if Jamie wants to change something, but this policy in January,
Yeah,
that we would be
She
happy.
would
I'd be,
use the user web signature, you know, I mean, you use to do digital signature if you wanted, so.
Yeah.
It would just, her election still would allow the signature, just get exercise.
yeah, and I think we can make sure to be available to make those modifications if Jamie sees.
Okay, I know you're with us, Jamie, so I'm gonna make a motion that we accept resolution 825.
I'll second.
there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Okay, 6D, resolution number 826, amend compensation policy for administrative employees.
So a couple of things. Every year we take a look at our employees' pay and make sure that it's still appropriate so that we can attract and retain people. This year, there's been, obviously some inflation, and so this reflects that. The numbers that are in this particular revision are reflected in the 2023 budget. So in a sense, this has no impact on the budget. In a sense, it drove creation of the budget. So the costs are in there. We also have much of the change is driven by our contract with the Teamsters. So there's a formula for calculating the pay increase in that. And we use that as kind of a starting point to look at how our exempt employees should be compensated. And that's what's reflected in this resolution. With that, I know Ann did a ton of work on this. And I think Annette looked at some of it too. And if there are any questions on the details, I would defer to them. But that's the background for the, and we do this every year. We look at what folks ought to be paid.
The only question I have for you, Chris, is this is all already planned in the budget for next year?
That's correct.
That was my only question.
My only question relates to the position that we are looking to hire for in this calendar year. So it looked like the project manager and the electric utility analyst were on the table that you put in there. And there was no change with those salary ranges. And just looking at them, both of those positions start at $75,000 a year, which increasingly in Whatcom County, that's, just with the cost of living and everything, I'm just wondering if we think, is this high enough to attract the caliber of candidate that we're looking for with those two positions? Should we be changing it? And also, is there going to be a new level of deferred compensation for those positions? Yes, okay.
Everybody, all the administrative employees will receive the 9.2%.
Okay. Okay.
Retirement contribution. We interviewed 2 project managers last week, and we're bringing them both back for second interviews this week. So we'll hopefully have an offer out to one of them and bringing them on hopefully January 3rd.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that doesn't help us on the electric analyst.
I was gonna say the electric analyst.
Yeah, and we've looked at what that's compensated for through Wakuda. That's where we got the numbers from.
Okay.
So it's not a, it's a year back, but I think that, given the fact that we moved all the brackets up by what we think is about the inflation amount, I think we're okay.
Okay.
So does that mean,
And we're not going to be the highest employer. That's not our, so when you think about compensation, do you want to be below market, at market, or above market? Those are the 3 choices you have if you can establish market for a position. And for us, we want to be at market and not necessarily leading, but we don't want to be behind.
so with that new position, obviously depending on who we find, there might be, you might come back to the commission. We've done with this certainly the broadband position.
Well, certainly. I mean, if somebody walks in and they are, an incredible find and they can bring a lot more to the table than that position would require, and we modify the duties to, increase the scope of the position, then yeah, we would look at, we want to modify what the title is, what the pay band is, we bring that back.
Yeah, I'm just, the only thing is that to what degree when you post a position, of course, when you post a position, you post the band. And when the band is low, some people won't even show an interest.
Yeah, and again, you have to go by what other utilities are offering
Mhm.
for these positions, and we've done that.
Okay.
And if you want to go above band, all you gotta do is, okay, what's Puget or Avista offer for this position for an energy analyst? And the answer is significantly more than you pay your GM. And yeah, so there's issues around some of these things.
Okay, that was my only question.
No questions. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 826.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, Ann and Chris. Okay. 6E, amendment number 1, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife grant for WIRA 1 outreach.
And Rebecca is with us.
There she is.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
This should be relatively brief. We are coming to you for an amendment to extend the grant term, which it currently is ending in December 30th, 2022. We've asked that to extend into January 30th, 2023. We are working on a communication strategy that is just going to take a little bit more time to get it finished. And I have met with the WWDF grant administrators and have gone through all of this with them, and they supported this amendment. So I'd ask you to approve that grant extension.
Rebecca?
Yes.
When I read this, it says that the staff is recommending the outreach and education program to be extended till February the 1st, 2020.
Right. It ends at the end of January. They gave the date February 1st, excuse me. Yes, 2023. Basically, I have to have all the reporting in by the end of January.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, please, February 1st, 2023.
I don't want to make all the resolutions, but I'm going to go for it. Approve minute
I can do
number
it.
one.
Yeah.
But I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. And then we're moving on to amendment number 3, also related to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife grant related to the regional water supply plan.
Yes, and this one has also been quite a bit of a like the 3 amendments, and I did explain that in the action memo. The first 2 were adding funds and time, or the second amendment was to add time and additional funding of $28,000. Basically we just need about another month to finish the final regional water supply plan. We have it out for review to both the regional water supply work group and also to the public. Our comments are due by December 20th. We are meeting this week with the regional water supply group and the consultant RH2 on December 14th to go over some of the comments that they are reviewing right now, so they can the working group can ask questions of the consultant, but it's very close to a final draft of the report. And I was also able to get a little bit more money, another $12,000, that would bring the total grant funding up to $240,000 in all. And they allowed us the extra $12,000. That again is just to wrap up this final report. We will also be doing a outreach presentation meeting that will likely not occur until February. And the WDFW agrees that we can do that presentation after the end of the grant, which is February 1st, 2023, because they will have all the written product. And I think that was all I needed to add about this. Oh, I guess I'd just like to comment that originally when we wrote this proposal, we had asked for $250,000, and fortunately we were able to get it almost up to $250,000. So it helped a lot for us to, there's so much information that we had to analyze and pull together. It just took longer than we thought. So this is why we're asking for the extension on this one. Thank you. I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'd just like to make a comment. I have had time to review the drafts, and I just wanted to ask, as well, I mean, I think they're excellent. It's an excellent platform we're developing for the countywide conversation and analysis for planning, better plan our water in the watershed. It's extremely important work. I just wanted to check on the level of engagement that we're getting. How many people are aware of this document, and how many subsequent analyses and discussions are happening as a result of these documents?
Well, we have regular meetings with the regional water. Well, I should say, if we need a monthly meeting, we have a monthly meeting with the Regional Water Supply Working Group. We have a lot of email back and forth between the Regional Water Supply Working Group as far as if there's questions or follow-up. And I'll just, for the, it's in the action memos, but for the public listening, I just want to make it clear that the PUD is managing this grant on the behalf of the Watershed Management Board, the Watershed Management Board, and is the staff of the Watershed Management Board that is a part of the Regional Water Supply Working Group, and it also includes Ag Water Board and Whatcom Family Farmers. So we have WDFW staff, Lummi Nation staff, Nooksack Indian Tribe staff, Whatcom County staff, and all small cities, or City of Bellingham, and all small cities that have representation at that working group and the opportunity to review the drafts that we've had. And then in addition to that, it goes out, the final draft has gone out to what we call a broader public. That includes all the planning unit members and anyone who has asked to be receive the draft documents to review.
So with regards to that, when the study is being prepared, naturally, because many of the people that will benefit from it are also inputters into the studies.
Mm-hmm.
But going forward, once these studies are now completed, there's a need for maintenance and development of the countywide conversations that build on this platform.
Yes.
And how are we intending to fund that? How are we intending to support that? And how do you see that proceeding?
And if Steve wants to jump in here, I'll call on him, but this would be my answer. I've always anticipated, and I think the Regional Water Supply Working Group has anticipated, that this is phase 2 of a regional water supply plan. And we are already looking for, we mean the PUD, are looking for further grant funds to stimulate phase 3. And in the phase 3, my belief is that that's where we'll actually get down to actually having some time to develop actual projects that would go again through this working group that would maybe to specific sub-basins within the regional water supply plan. So I believe that this is ongoing, and we are planning in the new year to look for some grant funding, possibly through the Department of Ecology's Stream Flow Restoration Grant. I'll let Steve say something now.
Commissioners, the other part of that, I think, response is that eventually this will go back to the Watershed Management Board for final approval. And we are just starting now, just as of yesterday, starting to have discussion about the Watershed Management Board's 5-year work plan and how all the pieces that are being worked on, whether it's this water supply plan, drainage-based management plan, salmon recovery plan, all that, how we need to start being more integrative in having the Watershed Management Board discuss all of these so that the public is aware that the Watershed Management Board is the place to have these discussions and have the Watershed Management Board make decisions on how they bring this out into the public in terms of having an opportunity for the public to be more engaged. I think that's been part of the discussion for the last, 3 to 4 years. But I think it's very timely that that's how we need to move forward in the first quarter of this year. Because as we started to getting a few comments back in the last week or so from the public, there's still a lot of questions about how they engage directly with the process. And without it being a quote public process up to this point, we are starting to move in that direction to make sure that people understand where these discussions are taking place and how the public can make comments, and having those comments be accepted and then integrated if the Watershed Management Board decides to integrate those into the processes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And of course, we have a Watershed Management Board meeting this week.
Yeah,
On Thursday, I believe.
Yes.
This isn't on the agenda, but I'm assuming that at some point in the future, this is the kind of thing that will be on the agenda.
It'll be on the agenda probably at the Watershed Management Board's first meeting in 2023. Part of this, as Rebecca indicated, WDFW is requiring us to do a public presentation, and a decision as to how that presentation is made. Is it at the Watershed Management Board? Is it a separate presentation that's just basically a, to the entire Whatcom community? Here's where we're at. Here's the results after integrating the comments into the report. So yeah, long answer, yes. In early 2023, we'll have that first public output. An opportunity to have that discussion.
I have a question for you guys to ponder, and we don't have to answer that today, but is there any wisdom in combining some of what we're trying to accomplish as some specific on the executive's budget request? And just something to ponder.
Okay, I won't answer today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just say that, I want to thank Steve and Rebecca for kind of taking the administrative mantle for the Watershed Management Board. And just kind of a reminder, we don't drive that body. We're just trying to help them get work done. And they've done that effectively for the better part of almost 2 decades now. So, on behalf of the entire community, I want to thank you both. It's been remarkable, and I look forward to you guys continuing to help with that.
Thank you.
And we haven't won any, sorry. Oh, no, go ahead. We haven't won any race, but we're trying to implement the adage, slow and steady wins the race. We haven't won any races, but would be hopefully the outcome we get.
I just rather get it right than get it quick.
We're definitely the turtle.
Yes. Yes. It's one thing to have unlimited funds and unlimited staff capacity, but that's just not how this process works. So slow and steady. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not have even succeeded.
Yeah.
That's question.
Echoing the appreciation and acknowledging also that, yes, we do not drive the Watershed Management Board, and with this particular plan, we were just kind of the facilitator. But I did just, I want to make, and I have no problem with this amendment. I know that this work was not fully funded, that we really needed closer to $400,000 to do the work. And we got a little more than half of that. So as per usual, working with a minimal amount of resources to do a lot of work, but I want to just highlight 2 things for discussion later and in our role on the Watershed Management Board, which is just that in future phases of this work related to the regional water supply plan, that we really try to get into site-specific, project-specific actions that we can take so that we have budget requests for the county and state representatives. And this plan didn't get into those site-specific, project-specific details, but it's really important. And I think that we all know that water use efficiency in agriculture is probably where we're going to see the biggest low-hanging fruit in terms of the possible benefits to in-stream flow. So I think even if we can find some funding in future phases of this work that focuses specifically on water use efficiency in agriculture, I think that would be fantastic. And then also just highlighting the need for better data on water use, which I know we don't need to get into that right now. I'm assuming that when the report is finalized, the commission will have an opportunity to have a longer discussion about all of that, but I have heard from a constituent in the community and wanted to pass those thoughts along because I think they're really good suggestions. So that doesn't relate to this amendment specifically, but since we're talking regional water supply plan, I wanted to bring it up. That's all for me.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Okay, Mike, may I have the,
You got the floor.
okay. I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 3 to the regional water supply plan grant with the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion.
And an emotion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Heck, yeah.
Did you say aye?
I did.
Aye,
I
okay.
made that responsible emotion.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Rebecca and Steve. Moving on to 6G, work order number 16 for RH2 engineering for the D station upgrade. Brian, looks like you are going to be taking this one.
Yes, and
Can we get the volume up a little bit? Brian is quiet in here.
how does that sound? Better?
That's better, yeah.
Brian will try to project. Staff is recommending approval of Amendment 1 to Work Order 16 with RH2 Engineering. And the amendment is really an expansion of scope for their design services and corresponding increase in the budget for those additional tasks. Just by way of reacquainting you with D station is our valve station. It's the point of delivery of water to the BP refinery. We throttle via the valve water flows into the BP ponds. I mean, the objective there is to keep those ponds full and adjust as BP adjusts its water consumption. This station was originally built in the early 70s, at the same time that the new refinery then was built. And so it is in need of upgrades for reliability and also for better control of the flow of water into the ponds. So way back in 2016, we actually had RH2 do a feasibility study of what options we could undertake to improve that D station. Then in 2021, we actually commissioned a work order with RH2 to pursue one of the design options that were identified in the original feasibility study. During that process and looking at this design option, both RH2 and staff, based on new information gathered in sort of the analysis period, came up with a hybrid design that would better serve both our needs and BP's needs. So we'd have better control of the water flow, we'd have higher reliability. We'd also have the ability for staff to maintain the equipment at D station without taking it offline. So that involves some bypass piping and valves. And so what we feel is that this design better fits everybody's needs, and hence we are recommending going forward with RH2 on this design option for the additional budget. As far as budget, the original work order was $85,064. The budget increase to look at this new design option is $27,677. So basically, if this amendment's approved, the new cost not to exceed budget for RH2's work is $112,741. And with that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
I have none. Make a motion. Thanks, Brian. I'm gonna make a motion. We approve amendment number 1 with work order number 16 for RH2 engineering.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. The next item under new business is select commission officers for 2023. And should we, I think, should we move this to our first meeting in January?
Sure.
In light of
Sure.
Commissioner-elect.
And as well as delegations, right, for
yes.
various committees and so on and so forth.
Right, which, yeah, so, and probably approving the commission meeting schedule.
Are there any,
You need to prove that now, release the public.
Yeah,
Does that include, oh,
we can always revise it.
okay,
So
Okay.
that's not a problem. It's
Okay.
just, we need to get it out there so that it's published, it's on our website and we'll have it out there.
okay,
You do have to, this, the rule is you establish your 2023 regular schedule at this time. So
Okay.
it can be published, so you can place the state register, as Chris says. You can make amendments at special meetings later. It has to be published.
and regarding the officers of the music, go ahead and plan to chair the first meeting in January.
okay,
Right.
okay. Well, so do we
Make a
need
motion
to,
table?
okay, so,
H.
okay. Whenever you make a motion.
I'll make a motion to table item H on our agenda regarding commission officers and assignments.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Now, item 6I, approve commission meeting schedule for 2023.
I'll make a motion that we approve the commissioners meeting schedule for 2023.
You see, Mike, when you made that motion, you seemed completely apathetic.
I was gonna say double it all, but I didn't do that.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday. Make it easy.
You're gonna be at all of them, right?
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to, oh, yeah, that's fine. General manager report.
I don't have a whole heck of a lot. Went to the Waputta conference, really frankly got a lot out of that. We had the water session and I was in the electric session as well. The general session had a really interesting person come there from the fusion industry. And I can't remember the company that he was with, but it was, when I had talked to Waputta about somebody, it was the fourth one. In other words, get this person if you can't get anybody else. And that's who they could get, but he was a pretty dynamic speaker and didn't throw anybody under the bus. And just to kind of, his belief was that you're going to see ignition by one of the small companies sometime before 2028. And ignition is a technical term in the fusion industry, but it's kind of, that's when the magic begins. So his opinion was that it's going to happen with small companies before 2028. If it's a big project like ITER in France, then it's going to be more in the 2050 to 2060 range. So many, many years out still. All that being said, the National Ignition Laboratory at 10 o'clock this morning is set to announce that they have achieved break even on their first fusion reaction ever. So that'll be a first for mankind. Doesn't mean that it's any closer to generation of power, because the way that they've set it up to achieve that efficiency, but just kind of remarkable. It shows the physics is moving ahead and the engineering is moving ahead. And anyway, just want everybody to have it on their radar. At some point in the future, we may very well be talking about fusion energy as a legitimate source that can help round out all of our energy sources that we're looking for carbon-free energy. That's it from me.
Can I ask a question? Not related. This is just, had a conversation with Councilmember Galloway yesterday, and she was asking about the ILA with the county related to, supporting them with some of the GIS work for broadband and.
Yeah, so I've talked to Tyler, And he wants to carry that ILA. So the county should see it in their January meeting.
Okay, great.
There's that one.
The
and
deputy executive, Tyler Short of the deputy.
Tyler Short of the deputy executive for the county, yes. And so there are two things. There's the ILA for the GIS, and then there's, well, actually, there's three things. There's the ILA for small water systems, and then the ILA for
Interlocal agreement is ILA.
Interlocal
just to-
agreement, I'm
I
sorry.
started it though, yeah,
well, there's three that we're proposing. We've got the small water systems, we've got the GIS, and oh yes, the ILA, the interlocal agreement to bring a county staff member on board with our broadband steering committee. So all three of those things, and Tyler is very supportive.
And,
Okay, great.
and the geographic information system is for the broadband, purpose of studying broadband, or more than that?
Yes,
Well, I think looping that was, remember Councilmember Galloway came to our commission meeting like 2 months ago, and we talked about dig once and connecting
right.
transportation
That's okay.
projects with possible broadband projects, and that's where Andrew could support the county.
and then there'll be knockoff, spin-off effects that'll be beneficial for the county. So it's not just limited to that, but
Okay.
kind of that's where we're going to start.
I'm surprised that, I mean, the county has a department that handles roads and,
True, but we have Andrew.
but and that's exactly what I was confused. You got the punchline. Yeah, they have a department, we have Andrew. So.
And to be fair, I mean, they're constrained by what they've been tasked with and funded and directed and trained and, you know, all of that. And we got Andrew, who was not constrained, who basically was told to go forth and prosper in his prior job, and learned what he had about Esri and continues to do that.
Thanks for the update. I don't have any other questions. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brian, operations report.
Yeah, so I'll keep this brief, commissioners. I just have 3 items. First one, Ann's already touched on. It's the project manager position and the candidates we're currently interviewing. But I just wanted to add, hopefully not jinxing it, but I'm very optimistic based on the candidates we were talking to now, that we should have somebody on board for that position going into the new year, and somebody on board to assist Kurt. So real happy about that. The second thing involves water operations, and I just wanted to let the commission know that we dodged a bullet on December 2nd. You remember the cold weather and wind we had at the 1st of December. December 2nd, which was a Friday, we came very close to entering into frazzle ice conditions on the river. Water temperature of the river got down to 33 degrees. And quite frankly, we were prepared for frazzle ice that night, because with lower nighttime temperatures, we thought we'd go below 33 and hit frazzle ice. Didn't happen. So we dodged that bullet. We were prepared for it. Water operations as usual knew what to do, get ready. We were ready to go. And thankfully, the wind speeds coming out of the Northeast weren't quite high enough and sustained enough to super cool the river. So we're happy about that. The third thing is that
I'm sorry, so how about this week and this weekend? I assume that you're on the watch.
oh yeah, this time of year, water operations is continually on watch. They watch temperatures, but you know, the real X factor for us continues to be wind. You need to have that cold temperature, but you also need, you know, sustained winds coming out of the Northeast to really stir up that water surface on the river and to super cool it to frazzle ice conditions. And so we watch both wind and temperature, but the wind is the one that usually pushes us over the top. The third thing I have is on the power markets side, and it's something that Chris and I continue to watch, you know, looking what industry is doing, looking at the different energy publications. But power markets have been extremely volatile. Just some small event will trigger a rapid rise in the cost of power for purchase near term. And by near term, I mean, let's say 2 years out. We're seeing year over year a much higher power price on the market this year than last. And as an example, if we were to go out and buy power because we were short in the 2024 time period, right now that power had cost around $92 a megawatt hour at the mid-C trading point. Contrast that to our tier 2 power price, which in the same period, 2024, is going to be about $61 a megawatt hour. So, there's a number of factors at play. Obviously, it's that demand supply interaction. And what we're seeing is demand for electric energy is increasing, but the supply side isn't. I mean, it's stagnant, if not decreasing, because we've lost a lot of coal resource. The new intermittent resources coming on need a backup resource to firm them. And right now, demand is racing ahead of supply. I would say, this is just Brian's perspective, but in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a real step change in the price of power that you're going to have to pay at the wholesale level. And obviously that translates into higher cost power at the retail level as well. And with that, I'll end my report.
Yeah, it's a shame, Brian, that and I'm making fun here, that nobody ever thought of this before.
Well, it's an interesting time, that's for sure.
Well, thank you, Brian, and hoping that everyone stays safe and warm. Our water operators stay safe and warm during these cold times ahead. And any other comments from either of you two before we move on to commissioner reports? Okay, let's do it. Commissioner Murphy, do you want to go first?
I did, as Chris and O'Toole, attend the Waputa meeting in Spokane. And I got across the pass before it got real bad. So Kathy, my wife, I made it. However, my other part of my commissioner's report is to introduce my wife, Kathy, that's here with me for the first time. And then my eldest son, Jared, is here. And I appreciate them coming. They've heard me for years talk about the meetings. This is the first time I'm sitting in on them. So I think they're going to be happy that I'm going to quit talking about all of them. So that's me in my report.
Commissioner Deshmani, would you like to go next?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is mention the annual conference, which was a very good experience for me. It was good to go and had the chance to sit with Mike and family and Chris and it was a nice opportunity to get to know everyone a little bit better within our PUD, but then also lots of good conversation with other commissioners and hearing the issues that they're dealing with. And one of the things, I had extensive conversations with other commissioners about this whole subject of retail and what is sensible, what is reasonable, understanding the risks and all that. And the PUD push PUD community took advantage of, I think, because of the atmosphere in the state and in the country to push forward retail authority for PUDs. And I think even without PUDs taking action as creating retail functions, it has a direct benefit to our ability to apply for funding. So it's already had a benefit, and I think just the ability to say that we can do it is something that's having an impact on the market that's largely constructive. The thing that I'm pondering, and it was discussed extensively, is that how many years will that effect last? The effect on retail authority. How long will it be that the potential of action with very limited action on the part of PUDs will act market constructive about the market, and whether that capability will just be one that atrophies over time. If PUDs don't take action in that regard by participating in the retail market. But that's just something that I'm thinking about. I have no clear views or resolution to that question. But it was something that I pondered a lot. There was also, PUD does every annual conference, they do some sessions regarding kind of deeper issues that all organizations face. And there was a great session in the morning about connection and gratitude and how that relates to our organizations. I was very impacted by it. Made me think a lot. I think all of us. And what it made me think about was how maybe we can think about how we continue to improve being connected to the community we're intending to serve. And then, so a thought that got inspired in me is that the infrastructure is connection. Sometimes the people that provide the essential services, both our PUD, and also our biggest customers, are providing essential resources for the community. And, it's a shame that we think of it in such a kind of a clinical way. But really, this is what supports life, good life in our community. And maybe there's more of an opportunity than we realize to foster that kind of connection and appreciation for both the community and the community's appreciation for the infrastructure. And I don't know if I've got a solution to that either, but just it's on my mind. It's a good time of year to be thinking that way anyway. I guess I'd like to also make a comment about of course, the big changes happening for our PD and Mike transitioning out. It was wonderful to spend time with you, Mike. One last time. I'm glad we got to do that. And I look forward to doing it again, but I certainly appreciate the time we have. I'd like to say something to you, Mike, and that how much I appreciate from the moment I became a commissioner. You were very warm and always very receptive. And I deeply appreciate that. I wrote something. And
you're not going to sing it, are you?
I'm not going to sing it. Oh, I could put it to music.
No, I know you could. You're good.
I might even dance to it too, because I dance. So,
right.
Mike, you're an accomplished person. You've worn many hats in your life, and you've worn them well. What I appreciate most about you is your big heart, and how that shows up in everything you do. The PUD is better off because of you, and I'm better off because of knowing and having worked with you.
Wow. You'd probably get a hug if Christine wasn't between us here.
I'm still a little damp.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'll go next, and don't think that you're done yet. There's a whole nother section on this agenda. My report is pretty brief. We've been talking about the Rural Development Opportunity Fund areas in Whatcom County a lot over the last year. And I just decided to kind of throw some of my thoughts into letter form and had Andrew review it to make sure I got it right. And am going to be asking for a meeting with some of our congressional staff in January, just to talk about our concerns with RDOF. Because I don't think that the program was designed to really provide accountability to our rural residents that are most in need of broadband service. And as we all know, we cannot apply for grant funds in those areas. So Councilmember Galloway has been helpful because she kind of knows all those folks in the congressional staff. So she is going to be hopefully joining that meeting with me. And then Commissioner Michael Shepard also expressed interest. So there'll be a staff person from all three, or elected from all three of our organizations. And then we'd of course love to rope Andrew in if he's available, but just wanted to let you both know that I'm kind of felt motivated to drill down on that a little bit more. And I don't have a solution, but part of what I'm asking for is to brainstorm solutions with the congressional staff to if not deal with the problems that are in RDOF right now, kind of establish the need for better guardrails about how some of this FCC funding works. So I'll have Chris share the letter or the email when it goes out with the two of you. I'm hoping to get it out by the end of the week. Ann and I talked about staff appreciation. We've kind of been going back and forth about what to do and how to get it right and what's gonna be fun and good for everybody. And I think we've actually settled now on doing a lunch in early January, that kind of hard time when we all come back from the holidays and it's dark and gloomy. So I know you've been working on a date and we'll get that out to staff before the end of the year, but we're moving it to a lunch appreciation session, and we hope that you can join, Commissioner Murphy. And then the final thing was that some folks from Lummi Island reached out to several of us, and they're wanting to understand a little bit more about what the PUD is doing and how we might be able to support them, and wanted to get a commissioner and hopefully Chris to join one of their they have a like monthly meeting, and so just wanted to decide who wants to go to that. I don't know, I think Lummi is coastal, is District 3, right? Your district?
Yeah,
Three?
it would
Okay.
fall under Jamie.
Okay, so I mean, Jamie's not on yet. We can decide about this in January, and we said we'd get back to them. I'm also happy to participate.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah.
Okay. Should we, do you want me to just get back to them and say, confirm a date and say that at least one of us will attend in January, and if Jamie Arnett can do it, then she can, or one of us.
Right.
Okay.
That's great.
I'll respond to them.
Yeah, just let me know and I'll get it on my calendar.
Okay. That is it from me at this time. And then we're moving on to our last public comment.
And Rick Miracle is coming to the
Here we
microphone.
go.
Anyway, basically having been around for Mike's entire tenure on the commission, I would like to publicly thank him for his dedicated service to the citizens of Whatcom County as a member of this commission. And Mike, wish you all the best in whatever endeavors you are involved in going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I was trying to figure out how long, because I knew you were here before I was. I was trying to think that when the PUD was established in 36, you probably were here. No, you've been a long time committed, so.
All right, we have a hand up. Dave?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just, for your all safety, I didn't want to be in the room, but I really wanted to be there today to say thank you, Mike. I have appreciated the many lunch or coffees that we've had both at our office and at the PUD for probably the last 18 years since I first was invited in to help with some projects and things. And I just really appreciate your commitment to look under the hood and consider real solutions for your community. It wasn't just Ferndale and your specific interests, as you were really considerate of all the community members. And so I just wanted to thank you for your service, and it's been a pleasure working for you, and best wishes in your next adventure.
Thank you, Dave. We'll have to get together. We seem to have real good conversations when we start going at it. So look forward to one of those.
I look forward to it too. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands. So let's move on to our next item, which is resolution 827, honoring Commissioner Murphy. Looks like we have a resolution here that Ann and staff put together. And I'm gonna just go ahead and read it, and then if others want to join and share a few words in addition to this resolution, I know I do, we'll have time for that too. So I'll just go ahead and read this while you present it to Mike. So whereas Michael Murphy has served as Commissioner of Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County since January 1st, 1998, and will retire from his position on December 31st, 2022. And whereas the commission of the district staff are indebted to Mr. Murphy for his 24 years of able public service, having served the district faithfully and with the best interests of the district always foremost in his deliberations and official actions, and having given generously of his time and talents, now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County do hereby express their sincere appreciation and the appreciation of the people of Whatcom County for Mr. Murphy's outstanding service to the district and for the privilege of having been associated with him on the commission. Be it further resolved that the members of this commission extend to him their sincere best wishes for the future, and be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded in the official minutes of this meeting, and that a copy therefore be delivered to Mr. Murphy, adopted by the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County. I think, do we want to make an official resolution now, right? Yeah, right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 827, honoring Commissioner Murphy.
And I will second. There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike.
Am I supposed to say something?
Very welcome to. Yeah.
I'll start off by saying the reason why I'm dressed this way is because I entered my very first meeting dressed like this. There was a Dr. Robert or Bob Ebright who kind of ran everything, and he took me under his wing after he said, "Who are you?" Once I explained myself, he knew my family, so it made it better. But he basically said, "This is how you dress, this is how you act," and I have tried to hold on to some of that. I don't like ties, so I got rid of that when I could. But he was a great person to mentor me at the time. I think he may hold the longest record as being a commissioner, 40-some years. Yeah, and then of course there's Paul Kenner, who I believe served 38 years. So I feel like a child leaving at 24 years. But anyhow, compared to those two, but wow, I can't believe it when I think back. There was only 3 people here when I started, and I was interested in water issues, and I said, "Where do I go?" Because I couldn't find anything from the county or others. And someone mentioned the PUD, and I said, "What's that?" And I looked into it and met with Tom, who was the general manager at that time. Thought, hey, I wanted to run. Everybody said I was foolish because the person that held the position was a retired Bellingham School District superintendent, and very well known. And I was blessed to get into the position and enjoyed serving all these years. So I tell you, after 24 years, it's like leaving a family. You don't build relationships, when you spend that much time with people. So the county has become very important to me. Everything that's gone on. The people here have been incredible. We've always hired the very best, and I know we have the best. And it's one thing as a commissioner, I can go home and put my head down on a pillow and I can sleep well because things are operating very smooth. We've gone from being, who are you, to everybody knows us now from, the governments in this county, because we work with all of them now. And we have a good rapport with everybody. And that's really something to say about an organization, that everybody seems to approve of us and sees value in us. And so I've been very honored to be a part of that. Can't say I won't miss you, I will, but I'll just move on and find that next pathway for me to follow. See where it leads me. So thank you for all you've done. Thank you.
I just wanted to share a few words too. I'm the freshman here of the three of us, and it's been 2 years now that we've served, and I just want to say thank you for how much you've supported me during the first 2 years in my term as a commissioner. It's been a wild ride, to start when we were all on Zoom, separate from each other, and now we're here together. But I really felt your support, and it's never just about the issues with you, it's also about the people behind the issues, and you always take such great care to see the whole person. And then I just want to say thank you to our family too, Kathy and Jared. Getting emotional. It's a whole family is involved with a term like this, and 24 years, and so thank you for sharing him with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mike, I just want to say on behalf of staff, your reputation is astonishing here. And you've been a steady hand for so long that I think you've actually been here longer than almost any of our employees. A couple of our water operators give you a run for the money, and that's about it. Certainly in terms of staff, you've seen us all come and go, and it's been just remarkable. When you look at the results over the last 24 years, it's been consistent forward progress, and it's been caring about the community in Whatcom County. And I got to say, that's on you, buddy. and thank you for it.
Thank you.
If I can say something, I've had the pleasure of working with Mike all through this community and another context, and we got to know Mike. I'm sure somebody saw some of you. I think the number of things I've heard, family, you have considered this community as your family, staff, family members. Your character and integrity has been a bellwether and above reproach. And as I sat here hearing these comments, I was struck that, over the years, the PUD has been a serve the customers, but you kind of started pushing that gently to, what about the little person, little small water association, small well owner? What about the other people out there in the community, the public? I think the commissioners stand in that view, but you're kind of the bellwether leader on that thing of the commission, and I think that's to be admired. You led that gently but directly. I admire your approach and your character. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, thanks, John. Thank you. What are you guys trying to do? Get me to cry?
Yeah, a little cold, but he's been the first one.
Mike, I can't say anything really more than what you've heard already. I was fortunate to serve on the Linden Public School District for 11 years. And my superintendent that I left when I was unelected this last year, or about a year ago now, made a comment to me at our last meeting. And I would say this about you, is that you always concentrated on the main thing. And the main thing for this district is leadership with integrity, honesty, and care. And you have just, you just exemplified that over all the years that I've known you. And all the discussions that you and I have had one-on-one is this the right thing to do for our community? And I think that over the years that I've seen some transitions with Christine and Atul coming on, it's the same thing that you really reinforce this at the end of the day, what's the right thing to do? And it's taking in consideration all the people that not you just serve in your district, but throughout Whatcom County. And I would say the same thing that Christine said. Thank you to family for allowing you to serve us all these years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. Wow. Now the next time I get down, because my wife was here and my son's videoing this, they're gonna say, they'll get after me for getting down on myself, says. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Dan's gonna keep this on the website. too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I did see one name of a couple that I'd like to recognize because they've been very supportive and very Whatcom County. You talk about reaching out, and I see that Max and Carol Perry are listening in, and I just want to thank them too, because here's two citizens who really became involved. If we had more people like them in the community caring about everybody, then we would really be way ahead of where we are right now. It takes people that care about other people that's going to make this a great community in a county. So thank you, Max and Carol too. So you made me talk more than I normally talk, and so I've ran out of words to say. Want to talk about the weather? Maybe that's what I can do.
Well, thank you, Mike, Commissioner Murphy. Any other final words? I think we'll
break and
yeah, we've got some donuts over there for those of you that are here in person. We will be taking a break, and let's do a 10-minute break, and then we have an executive session related to potential litigation for water rights adjudication and to review the qualifications of a public employee. So that's estimated at 60 minutes. So
we're gonna short, at least my side. I thought it'd be longer. I'll be about 5 minutes.
oh, okay.
Not sure how the next portion of the review.
Yeah, maybe the estimated time closer to 45 minutes then. Let's say that.
That'll
but-
still get us out right about 11 or thereabouts.
Yeah. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? So we'll be back here at 10:17. Thanks, everybody.
guys hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yep, we can hear you. And we can see you just fine.
Okay, so we just finished our executive session related to potential litigation for the water rights adjudication and to review the qualifications of a public employee. There was no action. At this time, I will close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.